Us takes familiar home invasion and doppelganger horror concepts and reframes them through a psychological and socially charged lens, constructing its entire narrative around the fear of confronting oneself. Rather than relying purely on jump scares or surface level tension, the film builds its horror from identity, duality, and the unsettling idea that the greatest threat may be our own reflection. It twists standard genre conventions into something more symbolic and thought-provoking, blending suspense with layered commentary in a way that feels both modern and disturbingly timeless. And without further ado, let us commence with a summary. But before we do so, if you would consider subscribing to my channel, your support would allow me to continue to keep going and bring more breakdowns and reviews your way. The family head out on their holiday, framed as a well-earned escape from the routines of everyday life, though it is alluded to from the outset that this will not be an ordinary trip due to a lingering childhood memory that hangs over Adelaide like an unshakable shadow. Years prior, as a young girl wandering through the Santa Cruz boardwalk, she drifted from her parents and entered a beachfront front house. It's a hall of mirrors promising harmless amusement. Instead, she encountered something impossible, a girl who looked exactly like her, standing still while Adelaide moved, a reflection that did not behave as one should. That moment fractures her sense of self, and although time moves forward, the unease remains, buried rather than erased. Now grown, Adelaide returns to Santa Cruz with her husband, Gabe, and the two children, Zora and Jason. Gabe is buoyant and optimistic, eager to enjoy their beach house and perhaps show off a newly purchased boat. Zora is absorbed in teenage coolness, headphones on, half engaged with the world around her. Jason is quieter, perceptive, often retreating into imaginative play behind a mask. Adelaide, however, is uneasy from the moment they arrive. The ocean breeze and sunny skies do little to calm her nerves. She insists they visit the beach despite her apprehension, as though confronting the setting might somehow exercise her memory. On the sand, they encounter their friends, Kitty and Josh, whose lifestyle excludes a curated affluence. Kitty brags lightly, Josh jokes about tech investments, and Gabe tries to match her energy with playful bravado. Yet Adelaide is distracted. She spots a man standing motionless in the distance, blood trailing down his face, holding a sign that reads, Jeremiah 11:11. The biblical reference hints at inescapable doom, reinforcing that something ancient and inevitable is stirring behind the surface of a pleasant seaside holiday. That night, the tension crystallizes. As darkness settles around the beach house, Jason remarks that there is a family standing at the end of the driveway. Gabe laughs it off at first, assuming it to be some sort of misguided prank or local oddity, but when he steps outside, he finds 4 figures holding hands, unmoving, perfectly aligned. Their silhouette mirror the Wilson family. The atmosphere thickens with dread as the intruders advance and force their way inside. Once indoors, the truth is revealed in horrifying clarity. Each member of the Wilson family has a double. Adelaide faces red, her counterpart, who speaks in a strange, rasping voice, as though unused to language. Gabe confronts Abraham, a grunting, physically imposing mirror of himself. Zora is stalked by her doppelganger, and Jason faces Pluto, a masked child who mimics him with eerie precision. The symmetry is deliberate, almost ritualistic. These are not random invaders. They are reflections. Red gathers the family into the living room and tells a fragmented story. She speaks of a girl who met a double in a hall of mirrors and whose life was stolen. She explains they are the tethered people who live underground, created as part of a failed government experiment meant to control those above. The experiment was abandoned, leaving the tethered to mimic their surface counterparts without agency or understanding. They ate raw rabbits. They lived in sterile corridors. They performed grotesque imitations of the lives above them, tethered by unseen strings. The home invasion unfolds as a sequence of mirrored confrontations. Gabe attempts to protect his family, but is physically overpowered by Abraham. Zora flees from Umbre in a tense chase sequence that highlights a parallel agility. The predator and the prey locked in silent pursuit. Jason gradually realizes that Pluto mirrors his actions exactly. Exploiting this, Jason walks backwards into flames, compelling Pluto to do the same and ultimately perish. The film underscores that knowledge of the tether is both vulnerability and a weapon. The Wilsons manage to escape their immediate attackers, but not without trauma. They seek refuge at Kitty and Josh's home, believing perhaps that this nightmare is uniquely theirs. Instead, they discover that their friends have been murdered by their own doubles. The tethered versions of Kitty, Dahlia, lounges on the couch in eerie parody of vanity, while Tex, Josh's counterpart, stands ominously. The Wilsons fight again for survival, with Adelaide demonstrating increasing ferocity. News reports flash images of chaos erupting nationwide. Red-clad figures stand in driveways on highways across suburban lawns. The uprising is coordinated and deliberate. The tethered are rising in unison, recreating the symbolic Hands Across America event from 1986, joining hands in a chain that stretches across the landscape. What was once a gesture of charity and unity is twisted into a haunting image of rebellion. The narrative broadens from personal horror to societal allegory. The tethered represent an unseen underclass, those marginalized and forgotten. Their forced mirroring of surface lives suggests systematic inequality, those who thrive above while others suffer below, connected yet invisible. The film invites the audience to consider privilege not as isolated fortune, but as something possibly built upon suppressed counterparts. Adelaide becomes the focal point of confrontation. Her fear is not solely for her family's safety, but for exposure. Subtle hints emerge that her connection to Red is deeper than mere victimhood. She is unusually capable in combat, unusually driven to eliminate her double. Her protectiveness carries a trace of desperation. Determined to end it, Adelaide returns to their beachfront funhouse, descending into the underground tunnels alone. Fluorescent lights flicker over endless corridors lined with bunk beds. Rabbits scurry freely, a grotesque food source for the tethered. The environment is sterile yet decayed, a forgotten infrastructure beneath a veneer of American prosperity. In the subterranean classroom-like space, Adelaide confronts Red. Their final battle is choreographed as violent ballet, movements mirroring and countering each other with rhythmic precision. Red moves with expressive, almost theatrical grace. Adelaide fights with raw survival instinct. The clash is as much ideological as physical. Resentment against preservation, revolution against concealment. Adelaide ultimately overpowers Red, strangling her as the music swells in haunting crescendo. Yet in Red's dying monologue, the truth surfaces. As children, the two switched places. The Adelaide who grew up above ground is originally one of the tethered. She strangled her surface counterpart and took her place, condemning the real Adelaide to life underground, where she became Red. The uprising is not random vengeance, but a meticulously orchestrated reckoning led by the displaced original. This revelation reframes every earlier moment. Adelaide's discomfort at the beach, her visceral fear, her instinctual violence, all stem from her concealed identity. She is both oppressor and oppressed, survivor and usurper. Her life of warmth and love was built upon stolen opportunity. Red's revolution, while violent, is rooted in betrayal. After Red's death, Adelaide returns to her family. They drive away as helicopters circle overhead, surveying a nation transformed. Across hills and highways, the tethered stand hand in hand. The image is silent, yet deafening in implication. Jason looks at his mother with newfound suspicion, now understanding flickering in his eyes. Adelaide meets his gaze and smiles, a guarded acknowledgement. The tether between them remains, invisible but unbroken. The film closes, not with total annihilation, but with uneasy equilibrium. The uprising has revealed the hidden structure of society. The doubles are no longer concealed. The surface world cannot plead ignorance. Identity itself is destabilized. Are we defined by environment, by origin, or by choice? The holiday that begun with sunny optimism ends in existential reckoning. What seemed to be a simple home invasion evolves into an allegory about class, division, suppressed histories, and the duality within each individual. The horror lies not merely in violent doubles, but in the suggestion that beneath every comfortable life may exist a shadow bearing the cost of it. Now that the summary is out of the way, allow me to say what I liked about the film and what I wasn't the biggest fan of. Now, the concept is easily the film's strongest element. Being hunted by your own double is inherently terrifying, and the visual presentation of a red jumpsuits and scissors is striking and memorable. The opening home invasion sequence is tense and gripping, and the central performance elevates the psychological weight of the story. The social themes about identity and privilege add depth beyond simple scares. Not to mention that the performance between the family members and their tethered variants is one which is overtly emotional and convincing. It seems like they are two separate characters and do not share the same actor, and thus such a performance needs to be commented on, even though I tend to solely focus on the story. However, the explanation of the tethered becomes slightly convoluted. While the metaphor is powerful, the logistical details of the underground experiment strain believability. At times, the symbolism feels somewhat heavy-handed rather than subtle. And also, I'd like to point out that there was a scene near the conclusion of the story in which involves a huge exposition dump, which may be a little reachy and takes away from the overall concept, and thus, when it sheds away from the core focus of a movie, it leads a more watered down, straightforward version, even though it's a metaphorical display, which is counterintuitive to their purpose. Overall, Us is an ambitious horror film with a bold premise and strong atmosphere. Despite its flaws in execution and clarity, it remains thought-provoking and engaging, and I personally rated a 6 out of 10. Vote in the comments, please say what you think this film deserves, as of course, this film is open for interpretation due to its vast and unique concept and application. And thus, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and with that, I wish you all a good night.